join us.
She'll probably watch online.
Yeah, see, she might join us. I think this fog, there's something in it, my eyes are just burning, and my nose is like, no, it's so. If I look funny, which is because
We're on board.
because I look funny all the time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll call to order this meeting of the City of Salem Joint URA, SAJ, and Council Board and Commission Appointments Committee meeting for Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. Present are Hoy.
Nishioka,
Nordic Stapleton.
Awesome, thank you. We want to review, first up is just a quick review and fill vacancies on the following boards or commissions. I'm going to turn it over to Gretchen, who is staffing us today because our regular staff person is out.
Absolutely. Thank you. Your first one is the Community Police Review Board. And we have a current member who would like to be reappointed and moved from his status as alternate to regular member.
oh, okay.
And I'm the liaison, he does a great job. So I would recommend him. His name is Grant Yoder, and there's no other CPRB business before you on appointments.
Sounds good to me.
Fantastic. I like people who show up.
Yeah.
He shows up.
That's great.
And that you acknowledge that he's done the work in moving him from, alternate to a member.
Absolutely. In fact, he recently volunteered to draft the initial report that the board is
Oh, my
working on. So
goodness,
he's
that's-
taken on an extra step.
Wow.
Good for you.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
What
Grant's
are they
great.
working on right now?
Pardon me?
What are they working on right now?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. We just finished a case review. So we're preparing the initial report coming out of that. And we've been reviewing different policies that the board that the police department has been sharing that the board has been interested in, like use of force, like large events such as protests or large crowds and the protocols around that. We're gonna do civil rights in January.
Okay, so you've got kind of a program.
Small thing.
We have a program. Yeah, small topics that are unlikely to be issues. Yeah.
That was sarcasm for the
Right,
record.
Your next one is the West Salem Redevelopment Advisory Board, and you have Ashley Morey, who would like to be reappointed. And I don't have any other information on that, there's no other applicants.
I'm not living with that person. She wants back on.
These are all reappointments we have.
Okay,
Okay, all
correct.
reappointed,
That's why we don't have
that
that.
don't have that.
We don't have that.
Correct.
Okay.
I miss my spreadsheet.
Well, we have available.
I have it. If you want to. If they're all uncontested and reappoints, it might not be necessary.
That would be correct, that's what they are, but I do have it called up in
I
case
love my
anyone wants to
spreadsheet
look.
though.
Yeah.
I'm right?
Spreadsheet kind of gal.
I know. Your next one is the North Gateway URA Advisory Board, and Deacon Lewis would like to be reappointed, and there's no other.
And what is this is second term,
Let's find out.
North Gateway.
North Gateway, yeah, right.
Uh,
We have a lot of
Deacon.
vacancies, but
Deacon Lucas is row 7,
No.
non-resident term
it'll be a
1,
second term.
so
wants a second term.
he's at large and it would be the second term.
Correct.
Okay. Sounds good. I like it when they know that, they've already been there, they know what's going on.
Thank you. Your last one is the Salem Planning Commission, and a recent applicant to that recent appointment, Joaquin Lara Midkiff, would like to be reappointed. You have no other.
We had
business on
intended,
that.
there was a kind of little bit of a staff mistake that happened that we didn't take this up previously. So, yeah, he sent us an email and is requesting reappointment, so.
Yeah, I think his date of reappointment got changed because it was too many, if Dan wants to
We had
correct
to-
it.
I'm sorry, committee, we had to correct the term ending dates for a couple of positions.
Yeah.
This was the short straw.
So, yeah,
Hi.
sounds good.
Copy that.
Yeah,
That concludes your vacancies on the boards and commissions.
Excellent. So next up is discussion on modification of the scope of the Citizen Advisory Traffic Commission. And this is Councilor Stapleton's.
I have hands.
Okay, here's our spreadsheet.
I even got one for staff. Yes, I do, of course. Okay, so this is the information that I received from staff, and as you read through it, you'll see they've really thought out all the different things. I did have a couple of questions down at the bottom that I can talk to them, but they advised renaming the commission the Citizens Advisory Transportation Commission. I challenged that and asked if we could change the citizens to community. So it'd be Community Advisory Transportation Commission. Sorry, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, There was some conversation in the community about how we have advisory and commission in the same name. And how that's kind of weird. I did talk to Brian about this and he agreed that it was weird. But it didn't care either way if how the name changed as long as.
Let's
so
hear from Dan on the word commission or advisory.
The two are not synonymous, I think every board and commission has an advisory role, they also have decision-making roles, so it is a bit redundant to have the word advisory in the title, but it makes for a nice acronym though.
It does, and that was the concern.
And people know CATSI, that they
Yeah.
call it CATSI, which is I think why they wanted to keep the C word on the first, change it to community or citizen.
Yeah, or citizens.
Which one, I like the word community personally, I'd rather we've kind of gotten away from the word citizen because it just can be a loaded term.
It can be a loaded term. I agree with you. And I think community is more inclusive, and makes it feel that it's maybe not even, like, I don't know, just as local, it makes it a wider base. It just feels wider and more inclusive. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with that if the committee, or the commission feels that it, would be appropriate.
Next up, they want to keep the focus of the commission on project implementation issues and design standards. There was this really great example of downtown Salem this past summer. They did some new curbing on the backside of the movie theater downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can imagine there's a street going this way and a street going this way. And this street has a double turn lane, which we've been trying to get rid of double turn lanes in downtown Salem because they're really unsafe for pedestrians.
Yeah.
So when they redid this curb, they kept the sidewalk closed, right? And they kept the double turn lane. So we invested all this money to upgrade the infrastructure, which probably won't need upgrading for another, 20, 30 years. And we had an opportunity to catch that other thing that was happening in the downtown. What it was the walkability downtown something. It was a report that was given to you guys. Dr. Kara was on the council. So anyway, things like that hopefully this committee would be able to, or commission would be able to fix. They wanted to keep the long-range planning aspect of transportation issues with the planning commission, but would make sure to include them on any updates that were happening. They liked the commission at 9 people. They did not want to expand it to people who were outside the city limits. So, there's some of our committees have folks at large or like, they don't have to be residents. So, they would like to keep that either lives in the city or owns a business in the city. And then they would recommend the members being selected after they prioritize interests through an application process. They listed some of the different ways in which they would like the interests to be available. I don't know how you want to say that, but the areas of interest to be considered would be the following. They did not think of these as slots of people to fill, but areas that people could apply an interest in, and it could be more than one category a person could fill. So they could be into, own a business and ride their bike, right, or whatever.
And the way I heard the intent of that was to not create these pigeonholes that have been problematic for us, but yet to get the intent out there on people on the types of interests that would be helpful for the work that this group is going to do. So have it more intent rather than rigid, you have to be this to be on the committee.
Yeah, my one thing is that we have a full committee now. We just appointed 2 more people. I don't know how those people fill in these spots that we have now. The one concern is that I don't think that we have any transit representation right now on the board. So I just am concerned about maybe that needs to be somebody with a little bit more. And maybe this committee would be able to give guidance, but should somebody like representing transit be actually representing transit or a rider?
Right. I mean,
And that's my.
those are different things.
Yep.
What about a liaison from Chariots?
Oh, I like that idea.
Being like an ex officio member.
Yeah, an ex officio, non-voting, but, if someone from Chariots is available, I think that would be a great connection point.
I think it would be too. I hadn't thought about that. And safe routes to school might be one of the other things that are like that. Because again, are we just Is it
Well, Beth
somebody?
is on it.
Well, she applied as
She
a
applied.
resident of Salem, but she's not here necessarily in her official capacity.
Got it,
Yeah.
got it.
So anyway, those were my things. I really like the idea that.
Yeah, chair liaison,
Yeah.
ex officio position, that sort of thing.
So I'm gonna direct this question then back to the two of you. You know, we're trying to not over like basically say you have to be this, because we've had problems with committees where it has very distinct representation to get the pool. But I'm wondering what might be the best way to have some of this type of descriptive terms that could identify people that we could review but not necessarily be required. Is that something that we can add to
I
our
think
process?
part of the renaming and the refocusing of this committee, we're gonna need to do a code amendment to address some of
Okay.
these issues, the title if nothing else. But I think as far as the membership in the committee, we could just list these as characteristics that would be desirable, but not be mandatory requirements.
Because I think that would be helpful if I were applying and I'd say, oh yeah, you know, I do that. So maybe this is a committee that I could be on. Because I think a lot of times people want to participate, but they don't know necessarily where they might fit.
Yeah.
So I think if we can give some guidelines with this committee and others, but that they're not necessarily required. Because it opens up the opportunity for people that may not know if
And
it would be a good.
I know as part of the governance project that was discussed with the rules committee, and that's something we're gonna be looking at with all
With
the
all the.
boards and commissions that have those prescriptive sorts of things.
Yeah.
Another thing I didn't mention at the council meeting was that the application is gonna have demographics, age and that sort of thing. We're probably gonna need to put something in the code. This is way off topic, I apologize, but we'll probably need to put something in the code that says that that's requiring that information to be provided, it's gotta have some purpose, legal purpose.
Yeah.
So that, you know, we wanna have a more diverse, community background represented in our boards and commissions. You know, beyond just having a prescriptive, it's gotta be one of these and not one of these.
Yes,
Right.
I think that will really help in the application process too, as we analyze or whatever committee members are analyzing the group. I love this idea of references. You know, like ideas of
Yeah.
like what things do you do and how that might help you in that committee.
I think it could be a good model for that, like the work that you just talked about, Dan, for the others, like, you know, it strikes a balance between the pigeonholes and nothing. So, go ahead.
Do you need a motion?
I feel like we probably do.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I would like to move forward staff recommendations with 2 changes. One being the name, changing it from citizen to community. And with the lovely idea from Councilor Nordike about having how do you say that?
Ex officio,
Ex officio for transit.
if they're interested. Yeah,
I think that encompasses it.
From the chariots, right?
From the
I think you wanna be
chariots.
specific, you don't wanna say transit, I
Thank
think you
you.
mean from the
From
chariots.
chariots.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Second, thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion on this before we vote?
I mean, I could talk, but why would I waste time? You all know how I feel about this.
I think it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense for this. I think it makes a lot of sense for this.
Mhm.
And we'll be relying on the two of you to get it across the finish line.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm on board. I
Cool.
think it's great. And I really appreciate you putting in all this work in the 11th hour to make it happen. You've served it up on a silver platter. Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Sounds like a unanimous recommendation. Thank you. Good work.
Fantastic, and thanks to staff for their help.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was collaborative.
Okay, Gretchen, are you teeing up this next one?
Yes, sir. A couple of meetings ago, members of the Boards and Commissions Appointments Committee brought some good questions and feedback about the Community Police Review Board. And so we went back and connected with just at the staff level, not at the board level, about some of that feedback and wanted to bring you back some updates. I think your feedback had included the prospective members can experience a real difference from what they anticipate they're gonna do versus what they actually do, given such limited case reviews, and going years without case reviews. And how can board members contribute? And how can board members really hear from the community perspective? In addition to hearing from police, I think maybe that was some of your feedback. The updates wanted you to be aware, the second quarter of every year now, the now called Professional Standards Unit is providing a report on the complaints that come in from the community, which is including some data about what the community is sharing with the police department. So that's one new change. Please, yeah, stop anytime.
Can you maybe explain that a little bit better, so I understand when you say what the community's bringing
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah, so for example, the police department gets a steady diet of phone calls, complaints, concerns that come into them. And so the Professional Standards Unit is now bringing the data about that into the police review board. So the board is seeing, here's the type of complaints and concerns that are coming in from community members, here's the numbers that are coming in.
So
And
things
then
that
what
might,
happens with those, things that don't rise to the case review level,
Yeah.
but are coming into the police department, now the board is seeing that on a routine basis.
And then what would they do with that information?
Yeah, I think it could lead them to analyze trends, like for example, it also leads them to ask questions about whether things are clear or not clear. For like, why is this a consistent area of inquiry, or is that commonly misunderstood? So it gives them some information to analyze and think about.
Okay.
Another thing we realized we weren't doing that we're starting to do is have me report in on the things that I receive, because sometimes people will just go straight in
To you.
to me. And then I'll be a bit of a shuttle diplomat, like hearing them and getting it to them and going back and forthing. And so we're having me start to systematize that information coming to the board as well.
So let me ask you a question.
Of course.
Is today I received a phone call, and so what I'm trying to understand is if this might be a place that I could direct somebody. And this is someone who has owns some property right downtown and is having issues again, as I've heard in the past, with windows being broken, people sleeping. So I reviewed, do you have the no trespass? Do you have the letter in place? Yes, yes, yes. You know, and really it came down to they had been communicating with the police, but still very frustrated because what they want is they want police patrolling the area very regularly. And I said, you know, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. And he says, well, my tax dollars, I think you need to analyze where money should be going and the support needs to be. And I said, having it all over. But what would have been nice is if I could say, I will go ahead and report this to this review board, or have that done because he's already communicated, so that he at least knows that somebody is listening, because I think oftentimes that is what they want. They feel like they're not being heard, and they want to make sure that they're being heard. And so if that's something that might happen, I think it would be a mechanism that at least they would feel a little bit more heard, and that the area that they are in might be analyzed. Because that seems to be, you know, when I had, you know, the businesses down along McGillcrest that were having so many thefts and were, you know, really upset. We scheduled meetings and we spoke, and it doesn't necessarily give them the answers they want. I'm not sure this would either, but again, just being heard.
It's a great question. If you unpack that, is it about a policy question about where resources are being applied at the end of the day?
That what it was, I want you to evaluate that because I
Yeah.
think it's needed, because
Yeah.
he feels targeted.
Yeah,
And I tried to explain that other people do as well, but again, that lands on tough ears because they want to feel like, well, I need help. You know, they're calling out for help.
so what's the best place to put that?
yeah, that's what I'm thinking about right now, because it would be a little bit different for the Community Police Review Board. It's not to say that it couldn't happen. There's public comment available right now and people can come and make comment. I field calls like that
Yes.
routinely,
yeah.
you know, we both do. And so But at the end of the day, it's a policy decision and a funding decision, which is a bigger picture kind of a question.
Yeah.
To me, it's almost something that needs to go more to a deputy chief
Yeah,
rather than the review board,
yeah,
because it's really an
Is that,
operational issue.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
about,
that's what I was gonna say, here's an operational.
but it is frustrating because
Yeah.
I oftentimes, and Chief Womack has always been gracious
Yeah.
and gathers the group and we have the meeting, but oftentimes it doesn't necessarily give a lot of solace to those that are there.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice if we could figure out at least some way to make sure that they feel heard. You know, when I suggest, well, work with the businesses and see if you can hire private security that can patrol and, well, then that just still costs me money. Well, yes, you know, it does. And unfortunately,
It costs us money too.
Exactly.
It ain't free.
But, you know, again, I don't know if there's any place that could do that. And
I feel
when
like,
you were saying it,
yeah, I feel like it's really an operational issue, not so much a review issue. That's just my take, but
but
no, I'm having the same thought, but
Yeah.
so maybe a referral to leadership in the police department would be a good solution there.
We don't want CPRB deciding patrols, that's
Yeah.
completely outside of their
right
scope
there,
and
and again,
expertise.
as you just pointed out, it's reviewing
Right.
issues. I'm just saying,
Specific
like,
cases,
how do we get this information?
yeah,
Because what happens is they do report it and the officer that they're speaking with will often say, we just don't have the staff. That's not what they want to hear.
Right.
here's what I usually do with something like that. I will either call or email the chief or our deputy chief
Yeah.
and say, hey, I've had this conversation with this particular individual.
Yes,
I would really appreciate it if somebody could do some follow-up with them.
okay.
And
That's
that
all.
way, it's because the regular,
I just feel so bad because, you know, it's just like, I feel like they don't have time to bother with me.
that's why you need to go up the ladder a little bit, because they understand that having a conversation, they have time generally, whereas a patrol person, they're busy. They don't have, they're going from call to call, they're not thinking about
Yeah.
the bigger picture implications of this, and where you need somebody, a lieutenant or a deputy chief, who can just have a 10-minute conversation with somebody.
So Chris, let me ask you, would that be Aguilera because she's downtown, because it's right downtown?
That's who I would refer to.
I mean, the reality is the police already use a data-informed approach to deciding where to send their patrols.
Exactly.
Right.
They already do
But
that,
that's where they need an explanation of that process, the person
Yeah.
needs to hear it, and the deputy chief is the person who can explain that
Right.
in a way that, you know, hopefully the person can hear,
Well, of course, what he wanted was me to fix all the problems.
of course.
that's how that works, of course.
As you all know.
While I'm curious, so we got a use of force report, I believe earlier this year, and the presentation from the police chief does seep under this kind of new, you know, kind of way of the CPRB doing things, will they be getting the use of force report too?
Correct, they did back
Okay.
in July,
Great.
and we've got that queued in for every third quarter, if my memory
Perfect.
serves me, because that's a routine and one that elevates
Yeah,
of
okay,
importance. We also have a new idea, which is to begin to invite groups or organizations to come and bring a topic to the board. Like if there is something around, there's a theme with use of force or something that's on the minds of community members, to get to your feedback about bringing in community perspective.
Mhm.
Our thought is to make it a 2-meeting process where the group can bring in their thoughts and perspective in meeting number 1. And then we would ask the PD to come back with a subject matter expert or information about that topic. Like the board would say, oh, okay, this is interesting, here's some questions we have, and then the PD would come back with information in the second meeting. So we could also use the Community Police Review Board in that way.
Okay.
I like that. Also, by way of update, we did have a case review. We were so excited, we had one. And the board decided to receive it, and then we held a case review meeting on December 4th, and now they're writing their initial reports. So we've also had one this winter too, so that was
This
good.
is like the first one and
Wow, it was wow.
yeah, I was about to say, what, 5 years?
I wanna
Four?
say 2017,
Fascinating.
2018, yeah.
Wow,
can I
yeah.
ask about the work of the Human Rights Commission?
Yeah.
They do their survey every year.
We do,
There's some information about police enforcement in that survey.
correct.
Is there any crossover with the Community Police Review Board with that information?
Ironically, the gentleman who's just exiting being chair is also on Human Rights Commission, but we haven't thought to bring that data to CPRB. We give it to the police department.
Yeah.
They'd actually asked us to include those questions on the survey, but we haven't brought it to the board. We could, I mean,
That's a
that's
good
a
idea.
yeah,
Just
that's a good thought.
They gotta fill their meetings with something most
Yeah,
of the time.
so we've got this quarterly cadence of the key topics, the idea of the community piece, having me start to report on stuff, but
Mhm.
we serve this up as basically an offering to your feedback, and I don't know if it's responsive or if you had other thoughts in mind or.
So I think it's great.
Again, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
So bringing and inviting groups or organizations to bring a topic. Again, give me an idea what that might be, or
Yeah.
are you still exploring that?
Oh, it's
Because-
brand new for us. It would be like, maybe there's a theme in the community is recognizing maybe a trend in the complaint data on like, there seems to be an issue with people are calling in a lot about entrance into vehicles upon arrest and the slide into the car, for example. And so maybe there's community members or a group of people in the community that's talking about that. We can invite them in to share their perspective. The board might have seen that aligned with the data that they're seeing. So it wouldn't be based upon an unresolved complaint. It wouldn't be based upon a generic topic. It would be based upon something that the community's talking about or that the board members are talking about. So I think I think it's open on, kind of on purpose.
Okay.
To try to be responsive.
This already feels like a lot of updates, and I feel, my hope is that organically, once they start getting more information, it will inspire them to go, wow, where do we go with this? Where do we go
Yeah,
from here, you
Cause,
know?
'cause when I look at that, that seems pretty open-ended,
Yeah.
and so I'm just wondering if you might need to hone that in just a little bit
We might.
initially.
Yeah, we
So
might.
that it doesn't overwhelm you or the group.
Yeah, that's fair. Everybody has limited capacity.
Yeah,
Are you looking for us to do similar to what we just did on the other one with this, or are you just, is this going forward without our help?
Well, this is able to go forward without your help. I don't need a motion to accomplish these things because we feel that they're within the
current scope?
current scope.
great.
But I wanted to, there were some really good questions asked a couple meetings ago. We wanted to be responsive to your questions and see if you were left with any open business on CPRB.
What are your thoughts on that? Did you get your questions answered?
I did,
Satisfactory?
I think, again, wonderful ideas. I think that there might just need to be a little kind of compression in, at least on the last one, because,
So open-ended.
yeah, I think that if I were on a committee, I'd start to feel like, okay, what does this mean? You know, it
Good advice.
might
You
be,
mean like limit it to like twice a year, like 2 topics a year or something like that?
or more about what the group or organization is trying to bring forward. It's like, do we hone in on the subject matter
Yeah.
of what they're bringing? Because it could open up a lot of doors that might be directed more to the deputy, that's the kind of thing,
Operational.
yeah, more
Yeah.
operational than support from this board.
That's good advice as liaison. I want some criteria to help the chair decide what's good to bring if we get inquiries.
And so maybe Annie Rose and the team
Yeah,
can help you figure out maybe what other cities are doing and what they're bringing forward, so that it doesn't overwhelm the group.
yeah.
It might be more of a step process.
I have something to say, but I'm not sure I should say it, because I'm not sure if it matters.
But you
Um,
wanna say.
But I wanna
I'm
say
not reading your mind yet,
it,
so I can't help.
damn it. My therapist is always like, you have to speak things.
That's her advice.
That's not always
Just say that's
advice for a city councilor in a
I
public
come
meeting.
in and then I
That's
expect
poor
people to read
advice.
my mind and they can't.
You should fire that person.
I am wondering about, hopefully not the cuts coming forward, especially at the police department. But I'm just wondering if this board understands the consequences of no new revenue for this.
Keith is currently going to every board and commission personally and talking about the budget.
Good for him.
So they all understand what's up. So
That's
he is,
fantastic.
I know he's making his way through all of them, and I assume that this will be one of them as well.
He visited them in October.
You already did, okay.
And it was a strong message of.
Good. Because I don't wanna surprise them with like all of the sudden, they're losing 12 officers, and that changes what the police department can do.
Right.
And so
I think it was really smart on the
So
city manager's
smart.
part to, because these are the folks who really can be passionate about advocacy and, you know, and so yeah, he's going to every board and commission personally. Now, he's not having other staff do it, he's doing it himself.
That is a really smart move.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about having some boards. I don't wanna call it an accountability report, but that end of year report, we're like, so what did you do this year? And I feel like this is, you know, some of your bullet pointed items in here about inviting groups or organizations. We've talked about this, but I just want to reiterate. I think we didn't, I think, necessarily commit the language to a chisel and stone, but like, what did your community outreach look like this year? Who did you invite to come talk to you? And so on your bullet point under we propose an additional idea, I mean, that would be where I would ask CPRB, okay, who did you invite to come speak to?
Yeah, report out on that.
Yeah, don't only speak to, you know, like, well, I won't suggest certain demographic groups, but I think that it's important they reach a variety of folks who are like, wow, we've never been contacted by CPRB before, this is a refreshing change. And accounting for any language barriers will also be important. There needs to be bilingual outreach for sure.
What was really great is this last year, Scrab went to all of the neighborhood associations, right? Like they all of a sudden became like ambassadors for the city, which I was like, more please.
Yeah,
More, that was
absolutely.
awesome. I have a question about just committees in general, but I think this one is just spurring my mind because there has been a committee that I think has been kind of like, who are we and what are we doing for a while. Do we have exit interviews with folks who are leaving boards?
I don't think we do in any formal way. I know when somebody leaves something that I staff, I'm always interested in what is your experience and why did you leave and how can we get better?
Yeah.
But that's not formalized, that's just informal conversation.
To my knowledge,
No, there isn't.
might be something to consider.
Yeah, it might be helpful, if the staff liaisons could, this would be again, something that might be part of what comes forward in 2025, but if the staff liaisons might want to get bullet points or hear, those exiting their experience, the good and bad. And that could actually help, make some adaptations to that committee, especially if the staff liaison is able to say, okay, I'm recognizing a trend here, or I think it would be, the idea of an exit interview, that sounds so formal, but I think it might be, an additional responsibility of the liaison to at least ask, you know, hey, can you give me your good and your bad feelings on, how it was on your time, and do you have any suggestions how this committee could move forward in improving?
You could do a Google form, frankly, you could have, you know, and
Yeah.
plenty of room for comments,
Comments.
questions. And there could be a checkable box, do you want to sit down with a staff liaison?
That's a great idea.
Because that way, I mean, yeah, I'm mindful of, I love it, but I'm also mindful of staff's bandwidth, but you
Yeah.
could ask them to write, you know, what are the reasons why you're departing, and you can have your usuals, like moving out of the area, too busy,
Yep.
blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, I would.
That's a
that
great
would be
idea,
good
because they had an application to get in.
Yeah,
So if they're leaving, you can send them a
Just the
a link
automated survey.
to get
Yeah.
out.
I'm just doing automated
Tickets to
survey.
leave. Until you do this,
can't
you
leave
cannot
until
leave.
you-
Still Hotel California checkout system.
There you go. That's a really
That's a great idea.
Anything else?
This is great, I'm glad to see this.
Yeah,
It's
good
been
work.
a thing, something
Thanks,
I've been
everybody.
thinking about for a while.
Well, I think
All
also
right,
it'll help
we are adjourned.
on that. Figure out some.
You guys